He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the place where you're not overly ostentatious studios of 365 Sports here in beautiful New York City. Welcome on in to what is a Tuesday edition of the Zach Gelb Show. You could always get at me and shoot me a follow in the good old cesspool of Twitter or on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. And you can always find me on TikTok at the Zach Gelb Show. And in addition to that, make sure whether you're watching us live now or consuming us after we air our show live Monday through Fridays from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 to 3 p.m. Central Time, youtube.com/@365SportsYT, youtube.com/@365SportsYT. Subscribe. We will talk some 49ers off season with former nose tackle for the San Francisco 49ers, Ian Williams, coming up in about 30 minutes from now, right at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central Time. The wonderful Kelly in Vegas is going to join us to talk a little March Madness, and away we go on this Tuesday. Garrett Ross, obviously back in our Waco, Texas studios. We got Andrew and Logan also back in our Waco, Texas studios as well, helping us put on this extravaganza on a Tuesday edition of the Zach Gelb Show. We have a lot of NFL news to get into today, and we were not expecting this trade to go down. Or maybe there was one person who was expecting this trade to go down. Now, we didn't really give the details, but Aqib Talib, the former Broncos and Patriots defensive back, I gather he does a show now with Skip Bayless, is where I think I see Talib and Bayless talking a lot on my social media feed. And Aqib Talib dropped this little nugget yesterday about the Denver Broncos. And then today it gets followed up with the fact that whether it was from Diana Rossini, Adam Schefter, Tom Pelissero, whoever you get your NFL information from, whoever got their fingers moving so quickly to get that information first on the good old cesspool of X and Twitter, you find out that the Broncos make a big trade where they give up a first-round pick and then some. We'll get to the details in just a bit. And Jaylen Waddle is going to be waddling like a penguin for the Miami Dolphins all the way to the Denver Broncos, to the Mile High City. Will get reunited with his old college teammate in Pat Surtain, who's one of the best defensive players in the league. So you got Jaylen Waddle, which is the added weapon for Bo Nix. But let me play you this clip that I saw this yesterday, and a lot of people thought, oh, it was going to be A.J. Brown, and maybe A.J. Brown is going to get traded to the Denver Broncos, and maybe the Broncos are making a late push for A.J. Brown, but it ended up being Jaylen Waddle. This was Aqib Talib on his show yesterday.
The young Ma, Davis Webb, Carter plays, and we will have an offensive new explosion player on offense. Just know that, Skip. Just remember, I told you that. All right, Skip? It will be a new.
Are you saying you have inside information?
I'm just telling you, Skip.
Okay.
It's, you know, when they break, just say, oh, yeah, Lee said that.
Okay.
So I do my thing. You know people. I know people.
So Howie's already got a handshake deal with the Broncos to send AJ to Denver.
I ain't say all that. That's you. You
Oh!
said that. We will have one, though.
So, Garrett, I'm fascinated by how Aqib Talib knew this. Obviously, he played in the NFL at a very high level. He probably knows some people in the Broncos organization, but he played on Denver from 2014 to 2017. So I don't really know. And he played for the Dolphins in 2019. So maybe he got it from Miami. I'm going to assume he got it from Denver, though. But with that being from 2014 to 2017, there's not that many people that got to be in the know that would be cognizant of the fact that Sean Payton and George Patton would be able to orchestrate this deal.
No, and it's weird. Like, I don't ever think of when I think of people or former players who might have an inside track. Aqib Talib's not one of those people that like immediately jumps to mind. But for him to have some inside notion on this, you know, good for him. He's got a good connection there. He's obviously got the right sources, but I was kind of surprised to see that nugget come out, honestly.
Yeah, so when the deal did come down today, I think it's a good deal. I really do think it's a good deal for the Denver Broncos. Like, Cortland Sutton is a good player.
Right.
But if Cortland Sutton is your number one wide receiver, even though you have Sean Payton as the the offensive minded head coach, Davis Webb does a nice job, a part of that staff, and that's why they're trusting him more and more and more with the play calling abilities because he's a young guy and he's rising up the ranks and he'll probably end up being a head coach one day. And Bo Nix is a good quarterback, but it's not like I ever looked at that Broncos offense and I was shaking in my boots thinking, oh, this is a loaded offense. So Denver had a really good season last year. They're in the playoffs. They end up getting to the AFC Championship game. They beat Buffalo in the divisional round. And Buffalo, obviously the Broncos were the number one seed. Buffalo, they lose to the Broncos, and then you find out after the game, which was still a bizarre and stunning way to announce it, and no one really realized it in the moment towards the end of the game when he suffered the injury, that Bo Nix had that ankle injury, and now he's going to be out, and he didn't end up making a start in the AFC Championship game because he was out for the season with that ankle injury. So they were so close last year in what was an open AFC. The Ravens had a bad year. The Chiefs had a bad year. The Bengals were injured once again. And now with what we've seen so far, factoring in this news today with Jaylen Waddle going to the Broncos, you look at the moves that have been made this offseason, the Patriots are still going to be good. The Bills found a way to go get DJ Moore. Good for them. They also signed Bradley Chubb to try and help aid their defense. They got rid of Sean McDermott and they promoted Joe Brady from within. But it's not as if I look at the AFC right now and I sit there and go, oh, the Bills will definitely win the conference, or the Chiefs will definitely rebound, or the Ravens will definitely win the conference. And they had the whole Max Crosby trade next, and then they pivoted to Trey Hendrickson. So there's really not a team that I look at in the AFC and I go, they are the favorite that you feel confident in. And the move today that the Broncos made, and now having a 1-2 punch in Jaylen Waddle and Cortland Sutton, two good wide receivers in this league. Not great, but good wide receivers in this league. You have a good offensive line. You have really good play callers and really good offensive-minded coaches. You have a quarterback in both who is good, and his first 2 years in the NFL, he's made the postseason. And you look at the defense that they have at Denver, which is a really, really good defense led by Pat Surtain. I look at the Broncos on paper right now, and I know a championship isn't won in March or a spot is guaranteed in the Super Bowl in March. But right now, if you ask me who's the best team in the AFC, I would say it's the Denver Broncos. And making this move today to go get Jaylen Waddle, and I know they gave up a 1, and the Dolphins also got a 3, and then they swapped 4s. I look at it, it's worth it when you're surrounding your young quarterback with a good playmaker, a guy that has a ton of potential, a guy who's a good football player, and it gives another weapon in the arsenal for the Broncos that strengthens their offense. When you strengthen your offense, you're strengthening your team. So I look at the Broncos right now, and I say this as a Patriot fan. Broncos, Bills, Patriots, Chiefs, Chargers, Texans, Jaguars, Steelers, Ravens, whoever you want to view in the AFC, somebody's got to be the team to beat. And I'm not saying it's this force in Denver that you look at them and you go, there's no vulnerabilities, and they're definitely going to be going to the Super Bowl. But right now, on the 17th day of March in the year of 2026, I think the Broncos, right now with how we stand, would enter the season as the team to beat in the AFC. Now, can that change? And if the Patriots going out there and after June 1st, or maybe even before the draft, they acquire A.J. Brown, yeah, I'll probably then swing the pendulum and then say that it's back to the Patriots. But what you're seeing right now in the AFC are teams are being aggressive. The Ravens tried with Max Crosby. They ended up going with Trey Hendrickson. The Bills were aggressive and going out there and getting DJ Moore. The Broncos were aggressive going out there and getting Jaylen Waddle. The Patriots, I would assume that it's going to be inevitable that they land A.J. Brown, because there's an opportunity in the AFC, as we just saw with the Patriots last year. As much as everyone wants to crap on the Patriots season, and they had a very good season, and people are going to expect them just to fall off, and they talk about the schedule and all that nonsense and hogwash. The AFC is up for the taking. It's up for the taking, and it's so unpredictable, and it's something that is foreign because for about 15 years, we just assumed the Patriots would get there, and then for about 6 or 7 years, we just assumed that it would be Kansas City, And now you enter a football season this year, and you truly don't know who's going to get there. But right now, with still a lot of offseason still to go, the draft and more trades, and who knows who else could be signed, I would say the Broncos are the team to beat. Would you agree with that, Garrett? Let me ask you this. Would the Broncos right now be your team to beat in the AFC?
I think they would be one of them. I think that it's hard for me to just say like one team. I think they would probably be up there with two or three others. To me, though, like when I look at the NFL in general this year, it's not just the AFC, but if you look over at the NFC too, like there's not two separate teams, or there's not one or two teams that you can point at and say, oh, they're specific front runners in the division, where I think that hasn't been the case in the NFL for quite some time. But I think this has added to the depth of the conferences. I think the Broncos do have a legitimate chance. But I think it's good for the NFL as a whole, because you don't have like these certain couple of teams that you can just pencil in, and there's a wide open field for everybody.
I would say right now, if you look at it division by division, who could potentially win the division? In the AFC East, it's only the Patriots and the Bills. Mm-hmm. In the AFC North, the Browns have no chance to win that division this year. If the Bengals are healthy, they'll have a chance. The Steelers, assuming Rodgers is back now with Pittman and DK Metcalf, they'll have a chance. The Ravens, Lamar is healthy, they'll have a chance. In the AFC South, I don't buy Tennessee. I do not. I know they made a lot of moves this offseason. They have a new coach, but they got to show me something. I cannot see them winning that division. The Texans, obviously, I could see them winning the division. The Jaguars, I could see them winning the division. And you know what? If Indianapolis didn't have the injury to Daniel Jones, maybe they would have won the division. So I don't love Daniel Jones as a quarterback, but it's not inconceivable where I'm sitting there saying, oh my goodness gracious, they can't win the division. If you go then to, we just did the North, the South, the East, the West, everyone in that division but the Raiders can win it. Like Kansas City, if they bounce back, will anyone be stunned? No, even though I don't like that they lost two of their corners. The Chargers, they'll get both their tackles back. Mike McDaniel now calling the plays. And you look at the Broncos, I just said their team to beat in the AFC. So, yeah, we just went through it. The Jets, the Dolphins, Tennessee, and the Raiders are the only four teams that I look at right now in the AFC and go, they can't win their division. That's pretty damn good. And you know what? At least with Tennessee, you could sell me, if you wanted to, that now with a full year of a new coaching staff and Brian Dable as the offensive coordinator, maybe the Cam Ward pops. And if your quarterback pops, we've seen teams go from the outhouse to the penthouse real quickly. I do not, I'm not going to sit there and crown the Raiders anything yet, especially with those three teams in front of them. But if Mendoza walks in right away with Bowers and Genti, they patch up that offensive line, and now they have Max Crosby in that football team, maybe they could be a competitive football team this year. So to sit here right now, where we still have we're months away from the season, and say there's only four teams in the AFC that I really can't see them winning their division, that's pretty good. Now, in the NFC East, I can't see the Giants or the Commanders winning their division, but if Jaden Daniels is healthy, all right, like if he's healthy, they made the NFC Championship game. So maybe they can. And the Giants now have John Harbaugh. So maybe they could get to the postseason. But I would sit there and go right now in the NFC East, I would probably lean, three teams could win their division. The Eagles, the Cowboys, and then I'll even say the Commanders, even though I'm not really high in the Commanders these days. In the NFC North, all four of those teams could win the division. Vikings just got Kyler Murray. They had 9 wins last year with no quarterback play, and I know some people don't love Kyler Murray. I don't even love Kyler Murray, but I think he will be a fit in Minnesota. The Bears just won the division. The Packers, I don't love the Packers, but the Packers are always like a 10-win, 11-win team, and the Lions, they probably will bounce back this year. You go to the NFC South, all four of those teams could win the division. I don't think any of those four teams are really any good, but all four teams in the NFC South could win the division. And then in the NFC West, I would only say only one team can't win the division, and that would be the Cardinals. And I love what the Rams did this offseason in solidifying their secondary. I love what the Rams did. The Seahawks, I know they lost some pieces, but they just won the Super Bowl. And the Niners are always a damn good football team. It comes down to injury. So you look at it, Garrett, right now. I just went through the whole NFC. Mm-hmm. And it was two teams that I said probably can't win their division.
Yep.
And the Giants and the Cardinals. And even if you wanted to say, hey, Zach, I can't really see it with the Commanders either.
Yeah, I can't.
That's five teams in the AFC, or four or five teams in the AFC, and at max 3 teams in the NFC. That's 6, 7, or 8 teams in a 32-team league. And we're just talking about winning the division.
Right.
Like if I said make the playoffs, Commanders could make the playoffs.
Very well.
Giants, I got to see more, but maybe they can make the playoffs if Jackson Dart is all that. And who knows who they're going to pick with the 5th overall pick. So we're going to be in for a heck of a year in football. And it's kind of like last year, where if I would have told you before the season started that the Patriots and the Seahawks would have been in the Super Bowl. Now, we didn't get a good Super Bowl.
No.
But if I would have told you before the season started the Seahawks and the Patriots would be in the Super Bowl, you would have told me I'm on drugs. No one would have believed that. So the NFL is now more open as ever. And could Kansas City just wipe this slate clean and go, guys, it was a one-off? But Mahomes is coming off an injury.
Mm-hmm.
They just lost 2 strong players in their secondary, and Trent McDuffie and Jaylen Watson. Kelsey's another year older. I know Bieniemy's back with Andy Reid, and who knows what's going to happen with Rashee Rice.
Yep.
He could be in a jail cell soon. So it's like I look and yeah, they got Kenneth Walker, who's a good back. But does that all of a sudden move the needle and make me say that the Chiefs are definitely going to be back? No, it doesn't. So this is a open time as a football fan. And if I'm a fan of a team, I'm not really giving a crap about the draft capital. Like the Broncos gave up the 30th pick in the draft. The 30th pick of the draft.
Right.
They then gave up their 3rd round pick, and then they got the better of a 4th round pick because they had a swap and the Dolphins had a higher 4th round pick. So you essentially gave up a 1 and a 3 to get Jaylen Waddle, and it helps your young quarterback and it makes you better. That's a win. That is a win for the Denver Broncos.
No, it is. And I wish more teams would do that. I think you're starting to see more teams do that. But I think the Rams kind of laid the blueprint of how to do things. Yeah. F them picks in modern football right now. You've got to win and jump on your window. And I think that's where teams like Dallas have historically struggled. Dude, if you want to talk it, you want to go all in, screw the picks, go all in. Because I would rather my team right now win a Super Bowl and then go for a 10-year drought, which I don't think that's possible. I mean, it's possible, but I think it's less likely with the turnaround and everything, than just piddle it down the road and get close every year.
I remember when the Patriots in the early 2000s traded for Corey Dillon, and everyone was like, whoa, a trade in the NFL. It was like foreign grounds.
Yeah.
I remember this as a kid. I remember people like, oh, this is so rare what they just did. You look at it in the last 5 to 10 years, the Bills traded for Stephon Diggs. They've been in the mix. I know they haven't won a Super Bowl. The Eagles traded for A.J. Brown, been to 2 Super Bowls, won a Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
I know that the Cowboys traded away Micah Parsons, but then they used the 1st round pick to go get Quinnen Williams. That's going to bolster their defense. So the Cowboys, they've kind of been towing the line both ways. The Bills, I know DJ Moore's contract's lucrative and he's not a great player, but they gave up a 2nd round pick for him. So teams are trying to do it now. The Broncos are, and probably the Patriots will end up giving up a 1st round pick in some capacity to go get A.J. Brown. And when you have a quarterback on a rookie contract, that's when you really got to build the team, because eventually Drake May's making $60 million.
Yep.
Eventually Bo Nix is making $60 million. And that price is just going to go up and up and up. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Even you look at the Raiders and the Dolphins who gave up capital to go get Devontae Adams. Didn't work. I know Adams was great that first year. And then the Dolphins, they made that trade for Tyreek Hill. And sure, they didn't go out there and win a Super Bowl. They didn't even win a playoff game, but they went to the playoffs twice.
Mm-hmm.
So every team has a different evaluation of success. A team like the Dolphins, it's just get back in the mix. A team like the Raiders, you make moves just to get back in the mix. But teams now, like the Ravens, and they try to with Max Crosby, and they got cold feet or the physical, whatever you want to believe. But teams like the Ravens, the Patriots, the Broncos, the Bills, they should be all in. You should be all in. And I know some people today, Garrett, are going to be sitting there and they're going to be saying, man, the Broncos gave up the 30th pick for a player in Jaylen Waddle, who is good, but not great. Who are you drafting in the 30th pick of the draft by design? By design.
Nobody.
That is probably better than Jaylen Waddle. Like, yeah, you could go draft, if he's available there, Casey Concepcion or Omar Cooper, and maybe they turn out to be really good. But look what Tennessee did a few years ago. They got a first-round pick. They traded A.J. Brown, and they drafted Treylon freaking Burks.
Yep.
Bust.
Keon Coleman with the Bills. Like, you go all in on it, and it doesn't work.
Yeah, and hey, like Keon Coleman, we could go through bad draft picks in wide receivers for a long time. But, like, let me see this. History of the 30th pick in the NFL draft. I'm just curious on the recent history of it.
Right.
And I'm sure that there's been some good players that have been taken. But I'm going to assume that it's not like this. Like last year was Maxwell Hairston, who got hurt. Nate Wiggins, Nolan Smith, good player.
That's a good
George Karlaftis, good player. Gregory Rousseau, Noah Benangwe, I think he was the Clemson quarterback. DeAndre Baker, Mike Hughes, here's a great one. TJ Watt, Vernon Butler, Demarius Randall, Jimmy Ward, good player. Alec Ogletree, AJ Jenkins, Muhammad Wilkerson, Javid Best, Kenny Britt, Dustin Keller, Craig Davis, Joseph Adai, Heath Miller, Kevin Jones, Sammy Davis, Kendall Simmons, Reggie Wayne, Keith Bullock. That's in 2000. So, like, have you had some excellent players that have been drafted? Sure. Keith Bullock. How would he really help the Broncos? Like, the Broncos have a great defense already in terms of going out there and trading for a wide receiver. And Bullock was a heck of a player. Reggie Wayne obviously would have helped the Broncos. But you're going back to 2001. Like, obviously you want a player like TJ Watt, but the Broncos defense with Nick Bonito and Pat Surtain and Zach Allen, you don't need everyone love a TJ Watt, or people would like a Nolan Smith or a George Karlaftis, but the Broncos don't need them. Nope. What the Broncos need is an explosive playmaker on the offense. And now you have Bo with Cortland Sutton, and you also have Jaylen Waddle in the mix. This is a move that I make. I saw this move today, and my reaction was, heck of a deal by the Broncos. Salute to the Broncos for the deal that they made. And then you know what I also said? I looked at the Dolphins side of this, Garrett, and I go, wouldn't you try to go get, and maybe they did, I don't know, but wouldn't you try to go get a 2027 first-round pick? Like, the 2026 first-round pick is the 30th pick in the draft. So maybe maybe the Dolphins look at it and they go, hey, we need a wide receiver. We just got rid of Jaylen Waddle. We're going to go try to draft that wide receiver at 30. And maybe it is Omar Cooper. Maybe it is Casey Concepcion. Like, I don't know, right?
Right.
And you hope that player works. And the Dolphins, they're not close to competing. So they're in the business of laying the foundation for their future. And a guy like Waddle, who's going to need to get paid again, you're probably not in a position where you need to pay him. And I've been sitting here and saying they should trade Devon Achane. They should trade Jaylen Waddle. Do what the Jets did.
Yep.
And I'm not saying it's going to work with the Jets, but the Jets now have 5 first-round picks in the next 2 years because they traded Sauce Gardner, they traded Quinton Williams, and they already had their surplus of first-round picks. So I've been saying that now, since I joined in January on this new platform in 365 Sports. So I look at the Dolphins side of it. All right, you get a third back, fine. You get a 1, fine. You swap 4s, you get the lesser of the 4. Who cares? I'm not going to sit here and go nuts about this. But if I was John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt, whatever his name is, John Eric Sullivan, the new general manager of the Miami Dolphins, I would have rather had the 2027 first-round pick.
Yep.
Because even though I think the Broncos are the team to beat now, even if the Broncos go on to get to the Super Bowl or win the Super Bowl, it's only going to 31 or 32. Right now, like, that's basically the apex, it being 30.
Right.
So could Bo Nix suffer an injury? Could it just be one of those years where the Broncos win 10 games and they don't make the playoffs? Like, we see so many teams go from being deep in the postseason the next year not making the playoffs, and they don't even need to bottom out.
Yep.
But even though I would say the Broncos are the team to beat now, I would take that risk of the unknown, and maybe the Chiefs bounce back. Maybe the Bills end up beating you in the playoffs next year, or maybe your division just so strong where you get picked off one time by the Raiders, the Chiefs beat you twice, the Chargers beat you once, and the next thing you know, you're not as strong as you were a year ago, and you're out of the postseason, or like an injury happens, a Joe Burrow situation or something like that. So I don't think that this is a fine trade by the Dolphins. Fine. Like, I don't think you're going to get that much more, but I'm more impressed by what the Broncos did than what the Dolphins did.
No, you should be. And I think the Broncos are also one of those unique situations where their division kind of forces their hand, where other teams, you could be in a lackluster division where you don't have like the Chargers, you don't have the Chiefs just sitting there waiting. Like, where you have to overcome them. You got to be able to beat the teams in your division to make the long run in the playoffs. And I just kind of think that kind of forces their hand in that situation as well. But no, it's a good move. You have a good young quarterback there. You have a solid Super Bowl winning quarterback coach in Sean Payton. You've got to strike when the iron's hot. Now, you bring up a good point about Bo Nix. Like, we don't know how healthy he's going to be next year. We don't know.
He'll be fine.
I know he'll be fine, but like, we don't know his time back and everything. So I just think with that, this was a good move for them. Like, I'm salute to them. I'm interested to see what the Dolphins end up doing there.
Yeah, like, here's the other thing. It wasn't like Bo Nix had an Achilles or an ACL. He had a fractured ankle.
Yeah.
So I know everyone heals differently. I'm not concerned about a fractured ankle. And the expectation, I remember at the time where he got injured, that he'll be more than fine by the time the offseason program does roll around. But, like, he could tear his ACL this year. And if he tears his ACL this year, Jarrett Stidham, I don't believe, is taking the Broncos to the postseason. And then that draft pick could be much better for the Miami Dolphins, but they ended up taking the first-round pick in 2026. And, they wanted a 1 for Jaylen Waddle. I think the Broncos offered them a 1 at the deadline. I think the Bills also reportedly offered them a 1 as well, but the Dolphins are probably using the Bills, and ultimately they didn't pull the trigger on a deal. Now they pulled the trigger on the deal. It's a fine move for the Dolphins. I'm not crushing the Dolphins for it. I would have just tweaked it a little bit and would have taken the risk on the 2027 first-round pick because there's really no risk. Right. But I look at this, and this was a big win for the Broncos because the AFC is wide open and they're going for it. Now, the direction of the Dolphins, they just gave a 3-year contract to Malik Willis. And I know people are going to think this is crazy the way that I word it. It's only $45 million guaranteed, which is nuts for a guy that's only played in 22 games and has never been good for a long stretch in the NFL. But that regime of John Eric Sullivan and that regime of Jeff Hafley had familiarity with Malik Willis. I look at the Dolphins right now. I would anticipate that they probably will end up trading Devon Achane. Not a lock. Running back value could always be weird, but it would not stun me whatsoever if they do trade Devon Achane. And the Dolphins should be in the business as next year's a wash. Year 2, it's get better. Year 3, contend for the postseason with this regime. They are in the business, and they should be in the business of acquiring the most amount of assets possible, and that's why they traded Jaylen Waddle. So if you're trading Jaylen Waddle, they should probably then go trade. If the value is fair, the value is good, don't just give him away for nothing. They should probably then go trade Devon Achane. But Malik Willis, your time is already ticking. Because you look at this team is not good. If the Dolphins have a top 5 pick in the draft next year, assuming the quarterback class doesn't tank like it did this year, and this is perceived to be a good quarterback draft class next year, then they'll take a quarterback. Like, I would say right now, if Arch Manning is the crown jewel of next quarterback draft class, and that could change as it does each and every year, but even with the ups and downs last year, I still think most people would say it's Arch Manning would probably be the first player selected in the draft next year. If the Dolphins had the first pick, you're probably taking Arch Manning. Now, if they have the 4th or the 5th pick or even maybe the 8th, and I don't like, maybe they may not be able to get this player if they're picking 8th. But if Malik Willis does some things well and he has numbers that are good, but the team around him just stinks, maybe the Dolphins then just say, okay, we could go draft a Jeremiah Smith and we believe in Malik Willis. But the odds of Malik Willis working in Miami, I don't think are good. I don't think are likely. And in all likelihood, Malik Willis will probably be in Miami for a max of 2 years. He'll probably get replaced at some point next season. He'll get through the first year. And then in year number 2, they'll either draft a quarterback, have him groom that quarterback for a little bit, and then go to that quarterback. But in some point in year number 2, barring some miracle, yeah, I would anticipate that with the way that Miami is currently constructed, that Malik Willis probably won't be the guy anymore in Miami. And it's not the end of the world because you only gave him $45 million guaranteed, and the quarterback that you'd be drafting would then be on a rookie contract. Let's go out to the guest line right now and welcome in a former nose tackle for the San Francisco 49ers. We'll continue all of our offseason coverage, and we have to cross the 49ers off the list. And now joining us on the Zach Gelb Show right here on 365 Sports is the always entertaining Ian Williams. Ian, appreciate you jumping on board with us. How are you, my friend?
Zach, man, I'm doing good, man. Just hanging out, about to ready to talk some 49 football.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you jumping on board with us. So let me ask you this right out of the gate when I look at the San Francisco 49ers for this upcoming season. Let me start on the offensive line. Like, this Trent Williams thing will probably get rectified, right? Like, you're not fearing that the Niners will end up trading Trent Williams.
I don't think they'll end up trading him. I think, if anything, they'll work on this restructure and they'll figure out how to make this work for both sides so that Trent feels good financially. And then also, the team has enough, cap space to make things wiggle if they want to sign another free agent, or if anything happens during the season, they have wiggle room to sign guys to the team. So I don't think he gets traded. I think the situation gets played out as it normally does. I don't think he holds out. Hopefully not, because I think they saw everything that happened with Brandon Ayuk and how that pretty much put a wrench into the season or into the start of the season. So I think they don't want to get anything close to that. So I think they definitely figure it out and they sign him to probably another year, or just give him a more guaranteed money.
Yeah, and not that Vidarian Lowe is this great football player, but they got some insurance if they have to get through the offseason without knowing what's going to happen with Trent. But with how seasoned Trent Williams is, I don't really think he needs much of the offseason program. And if this is one of those things where they get to a number and maybe he doesn't want to go through all of training camp, I feel like it's inevitable that they're going to find a way to make something work.
Yeah, I mean, they have to. I mean, his cap hit is like $39 million. So it's a very large portion of the cap. Yes, it did raise to $300 million for the teams this year for the NFL cap. So that's awesome for the Niners, and also Trent, and also these agents, they know that as well. So they also are trying to, ink out a little bit more of these teams, knowing that the cap is going up. So they definitely will figure it out, and, he will not be a part of any other franchise. He is too good on the offensive line. And I think with the acquisitions at the wide receiver set, you need a skill set like Trent Williams to be able to block for those guys so that you can get the ball to Mike Evans and Christian Kirk.
So now they go out there, they get Mike Evans in this offseason. George Kittle suffered the injury so late in the season, so they needed another red zone threat. Mike Evans, we know, is a heck of a player in the NFL, and he's been around for a long time. 3 years contract for Mike Evans. What can you expect at this stage of his career that the Niners are getting with Mike Evans?
I feel like they know what they're getting. They're getting a red zone threat, and I think the main thing that they saw was he's possibly the one piece, especially Mike Evans even said that he feels like he's the one piece that can come in and be the touchdown getter, the third down guy that the 49ers have had in the past few years with Kendrick Bourne and Jawan Jennings, and now having a bona fide like superstar and a future Hall of Famer like Mike Evans being able to come out and catch those passes and be a tall frame. Yeah, it's great to have Kendrick Bourne and Brandon Ayuk. They're 5'11", they're 6'2", 6'3". Mike Evans is a legit 6'5", so he's a big target for Brock Purdy to be able to throw the ball and maybe not be as accurate. And now those higher passes where Brock Purdy is like 5'11", 6 foot, now he can, if those passes sail a little bit over the middle, I think Mike Evans can now go up and get those balls. So having a guy like him to a contract that was really reasonable, and then also George Kittle, coming off the injury. The good thing is I think there's news and up reports that came out that the tear was a clean tear, and from what I was reading, it was near or not near the soleus. That helps or not helps. I'm not a doctor, but I know the area that if it's a clean tear and they don't need to poke a prod or anything or put a needle in anything or a screw, that means there's a lot of blood flow. That means it's going to heal. And I know he's going to be aiming for week 1, which is, early September. I know the team's going to be playing in Australia. They're probably going to make that a early week 1 type of game. So I know he's going to try to prepare his butt off to get ready for that game. So, those are 2 players that Brock Purdy is going to be throwing to, and George Kittle and Mike Evans, that are going to be crucial to the 49ers' success next season.
When you look at Brock Purdy earlier in the season was injured. Mac Jones came in, played well. The system quarterback debate did pick back up. And then you look at what Brock Purdy did the rest of the way with a lot of weapons that were injured throwing the football to, and the whole Brandon Ayuk situation playing out the way that it did. What did Brock Purdy show you when he came back from his injury?
I feel like he showed you what he can do with his arms, with his leg, and especially what someone his caliber, because he was kind of an unknown guy coming out of the draft. Last pick of the draft, nobody really knew about him, got thrown into an opportunity and made the most of it. So I think what you're seeing is him starting to blossom and feel more confident in the offense and also learning the playbook. Whereas earlier years, he was coming in trying to establish himself. Now everybody's trying to conform themselves around him instead of him trying to fit himself into the other guys, into the system. I think he's the system now for Kyle Shanahan. So I think that's what he's shown. And also, if that injury doesn't happen, I was at that that Philadelphia Eagles game where that tight end missed the block and, he got his elbow hurt. And that was a Super Bowl possibly winning team that, had a very unlikely circumstance happen to their star quarterback. So the Niners are very, very aware of that. So that's another reason why you don't want to mess around with Trent Williams. You want to give him his money, keep him happy. And I think that's what they're going to do. And, he's really critical to what Brock Purdy wants to do. And if he feels comfortable in the pocket, that's because he has a solid pocket and he has his left tackle that's blocking up and keeping him upright. So I think Brock Purdy showed the NFL what he's about. And I think, he's the future of the 49ers franchise.
I've never seen a stock in a player just decline as quickly as it did with Brandon Ayuk. He was a hot commodity about a year ago or 2 years ago, and then boom, in an instance, it's just all over. How do you process this being a former player in the locker room and someone that played for the Niners and then also, has covered them for a bunch of years?
Well, Zach, I'll tell you this, man. It was very disappointing to see what happened with Brandon and the 49ers because covering the Niners and, watching him be drafted and blossom under that regime and that offensive scheme was awesome. And, you got to see a lot of these younger players kind of, come in and mesh together, Brocky and a couple on the offensive side. So that whole situation, I saw it play out, and it was so disturbing to me because I wanted it to happen, and he would have been the key piece in the 25-26 team to really take the top off the defense. You have Ricky Pearsall, you got George Kittle, you got CMC, you got playmakers, but you don't have that guy who's going to be able to take the defense off and make them have to backpedal and get out of their stance and be able to be aggressive. You got to have a guy like that, and BA was that guy. And you saw that in the Super Bowl against Kansas City. You saw that in multiple playoff games. And for it to end possibly the way that it's going to end, it's very disappointing because now you're having to go out and find Christian Kirk, which is still a great contract, 1 year, $7 million deal. So that's going to be an insane contract. So you're going to get a lot out of Christian. So the two players are very similar. But I just, as a former player with, the type of likeness that I have for the 49ers and the franchise, it was just disappointing because I know they put a lot into him, and the situation with everything that happened with the social media, him driving past the stadium and, the team taking away his guarantees. I hope something like this never happens again. And I hope the team, learns from their mistakes, because I'm sure they make mistakes as well throughout this whole situation. Now, and I know they're looking back and kicking themselves, because he would have been a very helpful part for this team to go to see and make some noise and score more than what they did in the NFC Championship. But we'll see what goes on here. They haven't released him yet, but I know they're going to try to figure out and get something for him. I know a team's not going to give you a lot because of what he's done with his attitude and him basically quitting on the team. So the Niners right now are just trying to save face and just get something for him. So at this point, I'm kind of washed and clean of my hands, and I'm moving on to who wear the 49er helmets every day.
Yeah, and honestly, obviously teams will always give second chances if there is talent with the player, and he's a talented player, but the off the field stuff or the way that did go down was definitely concerning. Right now, it just seems like everyone's going to say, he'll go to the Commanders and team up with his college teammate in Jaylen Daniels from their time together at Arizona State. It feels like the Niners will eventually just release him at some point, and then he'll probably just go sign in the Commanders on a 1-year deal. And if it works, good for him. He restored his career. If it doesn't, that's probably the end of the road for him in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it works for him. I'm always going to be optimistic for guys, and as a former player, I want guys to succeed and be successful and take care of themselves and their families. But for what happened, and for what I know, for him not being able to come into rehab, for a guy who, like myself, I relied on coming in every day, every morning. You never heard those things about me or Ian Williams not showing up for rehab for his ankle surgeries or anything like that. You never heard anything like that about me, because I was always trying to get better and I wanted to be there for my team. So for him, I don't know what's going on in his mind. I just wish him the best. But yeah, he probably is going to sign with the Commanders. I just hope he doesn't bring that same work ethic to rehab, because he had a very extensive knee injury, and you can't just sugarcoat that. You can't just go out there and lollygag and think you're just going to come back from that. You need to work out, and you need to be able to, strengthen that knee and loosen it and get it, prepared to make those cuts and get hit by these DBs who are not going to hit you in the helmet because of these rules anymore. They're going to hit you down low. So, you can say you want to go to the Commanders and sign there, but at the end of the day, you need to attack rehab, and you need to get that knee healthy before you worry about anything else. So I wish him the best. Just, get that knee right and get your mind right. If I can say anything to him.
We know the standard for the Niners is to go win a Super Bowl. That's when you have an organization like that and they've been knocking on the door, that's the standard. With that being said, they've been one of the better teams in the NFL for the last half decade plus now. When you get so close, but yet so far, and you see teams like the Rams and the Seahawks go on in a 5-year stretch to go win a Super Bowl each, maybe fans get a little impatient with the current regime. I think Shanahan's a good coach. I think John Lynch is a good general manager. Is there that impatience there and are either on the hot seat, or is it just like, hey, you're not getting rid of a John Lynch or a Kyle Shanahan?
You're not getting rid of either of those guys. You can't control the amount of injuries that they've had in the previous years, like the Brock Purdy injury in Philadelphia that I mentioned. If that injury doesn't happen, I think that team goes to the Super Bowl and makes some noise. Okay, so that's one thing right there, and you can't control that. That happens. You can't bash a coach and a GM for trying to do their best, and they've established and they've built a very, very strong team top to bottom. You had a team that made it to the NFC Championship with linebackers who weren't even a part of the squad at the beginning of the season. You had a whole bunch of young guys starting on the defensive line and other positions all around the team. You had your star linebacker get hurt, and you still made it to the NFC Championship. Maybe you didn't put up those points. Yeah, it would have been nice to have Brandon Ayuk for that. But with all that being said, they've done so much for the city, so much for the county, and then also the team being able to allow them to not get frustrated. Because, yes, wanting to have a Super Bowl and seeing Seattle do what they did, they had a couple of good drafts. They got lucky with drafts and this and that, And Los Angeles, they made a trade and got Stafford. We didn't. And I played against Stafford. He's a great quarterback. The things that he's able to do, he's going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback, especially if he wins another one. You got to give him that Hall of Fame status. But you have those type of moves being made in the division. You need to make those kind of splash moves too. And I think we've been trying to, which is why the Trey Lance trade happened. They were trying to make that splash because they saw the future that he could possibly be. That didn't work out. So they're trying to recoup and recover from that. But it's going to take time. But I can tell you this, Jed York is one of the best people I know, especially as a GM, not a GM, but as an owner, because he really wants to win. And I've seen him after games, frustrated, when we would walk past him or anything like that and we lost. And I know he wants to win. And I know John Lynch and I know Kyle wants to win too. So when you got coaches in-house and people in-house that want to win, keep them until you see otherwise, because there's a lot of questionable stuff, Zach, that I see on Sundays, man. I'll be watching these games. I'm like, why did you call that on defense? Why did you call that on? Like, it's like, what be going on Wednesdays? Did you guys? And it's like, there's so many questions. And I don't really have those type of questions with Kyle when I be watching the game. So when you have a competent coach and a GM like that can mesh together, you got to keep them and don't mess with them. So I think they've done that. And I think 49er fans just need to, just lay low and just let the things, out. And I think the motto for John Lynch is, brick by brick. And I think they're building. You just got to see what happens.
I'll say this right now. And I know what happened towards the end of the season. They lost twice to Seattle, and the second time in the divisional round was just a crushing performance by the Seahawks. And I look at the Rams and what they did this offseason, going out there and getting Trent McDuffie.
Oh, yeah.
Going out there and getting Jaylen Watson, basically stealing the Chiefs secondary, already having a really good front to begin with. And you also have Quinton Lake in that secondary. I would say the Rams right now feel like they're the team to beat, with probably the Niners in second, and the Seahawks, they lost some pieces after winning a Super Bowl. I think it's a razor-thin margin, and the Cardinals are a distant fourth. But do you feel like the Niners are right there where they could go win this division next year, or would you probably give the advantage either the defending Super Bowl champs or the Rams?
Well, I'll tell you this, Zach. So the 49ers have the fourth most cap space in the NFL. Seattle actually has the second most. In the NFC West, in that division, all four of those teams are in top 15 of the cap space. So they can still make some moves happen. I think personally, not bringing back Walker, the running back from Seattle, I think that's a huge miss on them. I know they have Charbonnet back there, and he's going to come back healthy, but I think you should have kept a guy like that. He runs hard. He may not be able to catch the ball as well, and huge tell for the defense. But I think if you get a running back like that who's young and he runs the ball really hard, and you see Kansas City, they gave him money. Come here. We're going to work you with Pat Mahomes. If they see that tire can still work, you should have kept him. So Seattle took a big step back. And then with Jackson Smith and Jigba, you're seeing the arms race in the NFC West. You're seeing teams starting to load up on DBs because we got to cover that guy. You saw him in the Super Bowl. You saw him in the NFC Championship. Nobody could cover him. So LA and Sean, they're down there watching the film like, hey, we got to get somebody who can cover this dude. So they work out a deal. They get the guy, AFC, who can cover, and they bring him over to the NFC. And I'm surprised that the Kansas City Chiefs let that slide and let a player like Trent McDuffie go. But I think you're right, Zach. I think the Rams definitely think they have on offense. Kyron Williams, a Notre Dame guy, he's one of my favorite running backs. Stafford, I told you about him, and on defense, you're able to load up on some DBs like that. It's gonna be tough to come out and young. Seattle's young. For the Niners, if they can stay healthy. They have a veteran offense, veteran defense. You got Fred Warner coming back. He's going to be hungry. You're going to have that type of atmosphere. You got Dre Greenlaw back. You got Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw together. It's going to be a lot of noise and a lot of energy in those NFC West games to start the season off, but I definitely think the Niners have a chance to win. But NFC West, past couple of years is going to be has been the best division. And I think in 2026, they'll be the best division again.
Wrap it up with Ian Williams right now. And as a football fan, it's so fun because it's wide open.
Yeah.
Like, who would have thought before the season that the Patriots and the Seahawks would have been the two teams in the Super Bowl? And you see today a team like Denver, who lost their quarterback in the NFC, right before the AFC Championship game, and at the end of that game up against the Bills, they didn't have him up against the Patriots. They go out there and they trade a first-round pick and then some to go get Jaylen Waddle. The Bills go out there, they trade DJ Moore. The Ravens tried to get Max Crosby. Then I don't know what happened there. They go, we'll pivot to Trey Hendrickson. These teams are going for right now. If you're in the postseason last year, you should be aggressive because the Chiefs finally enter this season vulnerable, not making the playoffs, and who knows when Mahomes is going to be coming back after the injury.
Oh, yeah, you have to be aggressive. I think the landscape of the NFL has definitely changed in the last few years with all the aggressive moves teams are making to try to better their teams. And, if a team is sleeping on the guy and they think, the grass is greener elsewhere and they can get something for him, then, that's what's up. The Dallas Cowboys, they thought, they can get rid of Micah Parsons and bring in another D tackle. They got two interior guys and they played, very, very well together. But at certain times during those games, you needed the pass rusher and somebody to get after that quarterback. And Micah Parsons was that guy. But, then they fall into Trey Hendrickson. He's actually area here. He's from Apopka. So one of my good friends is one of his coaches back in the day. So I'm very excited for him to get that contract. But, how lucky are you for Dallas to be able to fall into that kind of guy and have that kind of defensive line? So that's just one situation just in the NFC. But there's just so many situations where teams are loading up. And I really want people to pay attention to the Kenneth Walker acquisition for Kansas City. That is going to be one of the biggest acquisitions in the AFC. And I think Patrick Mahomes coming back healthy. I think they got the offense coordinator back from a couple of years ago. He's back. They're hungry. They're foaming at the mouth. So parity in the NFL right now is amazing. And I think, Zach, you're right. Anybody can win. And have the Patriots and the Seahawks, in the Super Bowl, in the big game at the end of the year. Nobody would have thought that. Nobody. So hopefully we get another great year in 2026.
I know a physical with teams are in the eye of the beholder, but when you saw that whole Ravens fiasco go down where they flunked Max Crosby on the physical, the 2 first-round picks, trade not official, they go back to the Raiders go back to the Ravens, and then Max Crosby goes back to the Raiders, and then they ended up signing Trey Hendrickson. Can you take us through the process of what an NFL physical is like when you sign on board with the team and you get traded to a team?
Well, I could tell you this. So Max Crosby, that situation, it was funny. A dad asked me the other day, my daughter plays volleyball, and I was just in the practice. He came over and asked me, like, man, what happened with the Max Crosby thing? I was just telling him, basically when that happens, when the trade happens, you go in, you do a physical before everything ends, and they do pretty much, a whole body physical examination. And they caught this one thing, and he was like, wouldn't, the Raiders have caught that too? And I'm like, sometimes, but, in your preseason evaluations, the guys go in before you go into training camp, and you do have those evaluations with the doctors and the MRIs and the x-rays and stuff like that. But things like that can get missed, especially after the season where they don't do things over again until you start training camp. So that's what happened right there. The Ravens thought they had got a great pass rusher. It didn't work out. And then, they end up getting another pass rusher at the end of the day in Trey. So it worked out. And hopefully, Max comes back and he's healthy. And, same thing with Trey.
Ian, appreciate the insight as always. Thanks so much for doing this.
Appreciate you, Zach.
There you go. Ian Williams joining us right here on the Zach Gelb Show on 365 Sports. To AJ Brown. Now, it's nothing that there's a trade that is definitely done or anything like that. But Evan Sidery, who covers the league or aggregator, NFL and NBA reporter, he's got 65,000 followers. AJ Brown, I haven't heard this yet, but this is just what the tweet reads. AJ Brown prefers to be traded over staying with the Eagles per Adam Schefter. All signs are now pointing to Brown's exit from Philadelphia via a trade post-June 1 for cap-saving purposes. So, 2 things here. Number one, the Eagles did make a move today for a wide receiver. They signed Marquise Hollywood Brown. So, and they figured out the contract with Dallas Goedert. So, you got Dallas Goedert back. You got Marquise Hollywood Brown now joining the team. You still got Devontae Smith. You got Saquon Barkley. If I'm Philly, I would want A.J. Brown on the team. But A.J. Brown doesn't want to be there. A.J. Brown also has issues with the quarterback. So even though I would want A.J. Brown on the team, the Eagles have to know right now that this relationship appears to be fractured beyond repair. Now, I've been interacting with a bunch of Eagles fans because I used to live in Philadelphia. I have a lot of friends that are Eagles fans, and their demands for A.J. Brown are ridiculous. The guy in 2022 and 2023 was awesome. The last 2 years, he hasn't been happy, and his numbers haven't been great. Now, I would still want the Patriots to give up at least a first-round pick for A.J. Brown. But this idea that you're going to tell the Patriots, hey, you're going to wait, and we're going to help ourselves out with the cap, and we won't take a trade till after June 1st, and that you think that you're still going to be able to bend the Patriots over backwards and still get a first and a second, you're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. Right now, a fair deal for this trade for A.J. Brown to happen before the draft, is a first and a third. If I have to put a condition on the third, I'm good with that. Once the draft happens, and you have to give up a 2027 first-round pick, the aftermath of that deal, the value goes down because the Patriots are picking 31. In all likelihood, the pick is going to be better for Philadelphia. So if I'm Elliott Wolf, I'm sitting there and saying, you would have the 31st pick. We're now giving you, everyone tells us, and I know Elliott Wolf's not going to say this, he believes in his team, but everyone tells us, oh, we just had an easy schedule. We're going to fall back. Kansas City's going to rebound. Buffalo's going to rebound. The Broncos just made a big trade today, blah, 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 blah. You're going to be getting a better pick. So if it's June 1 and I'm helping your salary cap and I'm maybe giving you a better first-round pick, can't really get worse unless if we win the Super Bowl, and then so be it, then maybe it's a 4 or a 3 at most going back. I would be surprised if it happens after the draft and post June 1, if Philadelphia is getting a 1 and a 3. Oh, I mean, a 1 and a 2 for A.J. Brown. I would be very much surprised on that front. I just don't see how Philly's getting a 1 and a 2. And Eagles fans today, and I have a lot that follow me because, like I said, I went to Temple University, love Philadelphia. I've lived there for 7 years. But in the reality of the situation, Eagles fans are being nuts with their demands on A.J. Brown. Nuts. Like, yeah, you look at the deal for Jaylen Waddle. I get it. A.J. Brown is a better player than Jaylen Waddle. It was a 1, a 3, and then swap of 4s where the Dolphins got the worst of the 4. If you're making me wait till after the draft to help out your salary cap situation, you're not getting that much better than that. But Eagles fans be like, oh, the price just went up. The price just went up. Nonsense. Take a break right here. Zach Gelb Show, 365 Sports. We come on back. We will flip the page to March Madness. Kelly in Vegas will try to give us some picks for March Madness when the Zach Gelb Show continues after these short messages right here on 365 Sports.
The 4-burner, side sear burner with Clearview glass stainless steel grill from Monument Grills. Made of tempered glass, which is strong, insulated, and allows you to check your grilling without lifting the lid. Our porcelain-coated cast iron cooking grids offer a large cooking surface of 513.3 square inches, primary cooking area, with even heat cooking. The Monument Grills include LED control knobs and are easy to light with pilotless electronic ignition. Better grilling, better value, Monument Grills.
Protect your online privacy with NordVPN. Browse securely, access content from anywhere, and keep your data safe with military-grade encryption. Whether at home or on the go, NordVPN ensures your digital freedom. Stay secure. Download NordVPN today at nordvpn.com. That's NORDVPN.com.
I'm Abby Dommett, 2023 CrossFit Games athlete. And I use Airwave because it helps me breathe easier and stay more relaxed during my workouts.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Very discreet.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
All righty, welcome back in. It is the Zach Gelb Show right here on 365 Sports. Let's go out to the guest line right now. We'll welcome in Kelly in Vegas. Obviously, it's a great job alongside the folks with Splash Sports, and Kelly's kind enough to join us once again on the show right now. Kelly, how you been?
Hey, been really good. I mean, the madness is here. I'm flying to Vegas in the morning. I'm just trying to get every, T crossed, I dotted. I got all my bets in for the most part, but I'm kind of starting to see what the other bets are coming in, and I'm starting to overthink a few things because if you remember, last year was so chalky. So this year, as the dog better, I'm treading a little bit more lightly.
You know what? I always try to talk a big game in March Madness, and I always try to go, oh, you got to pick a Cinderella, and I'll say things on Monday right after Selection Sunday, and then I sit down and I fill out the bracket, and I go, I got 3 1s and a 2 in the Final Four. So is there anyone that you're falling in love with right now that maybe is a Cinderella, or you see them doing even a little damage in the first round as an upset?
I do a lot of different types of contests, and one of the ones that I'm in is a Calcutta where you basically bid on teams. And last night we got a little overzealous about VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University. And I thought it was because I was going to bet against North Carolina. And I thought, all right, let's find a spot where we have a team that can go a little bit farther in their matchup. And I thought, okay, here's Virginia Commonwealth. This is what they're great at. As far as a defensive standpoint, here's how they're going to match up against North Carolina. And my partners are calling me already saying, hey, pump the brakes. Maybe we went a little too heavy. Another team that I am looking at is Hofstra. I know it sounds a little crazy, and I did bet them plus 12.5 Sunday night when Selection Sunday came out. So that was before the Holloway arrest for the Crimson Tide. And albeit he's one of their best players, but the line only moved a point. I thought, oh boy. So I'm looking for some of these dogs that I think they can cover the spread, that match up well, right? Hofstra is one of those very slow defensive teams. They're going to smother a team like Alabama. And by all means, Alabama may break away late, but I think 12 was a little too steep there. I liked Akron to start Sunday at 9.5, and I snoozed, and it went to 7.5. And then I came back and I thought maybe we're overblowing what Akron did. And you start to look at some of their scheduling spots and realize maybe they didn't play anybody. But Texas Tech, my initial initial thought was, hey, wait a minute here. They haven't played well since Obi Toppin. They're limping into March. You kind of want to start looking at these hungry underdogs teams that had to put a lot of work in to get there. And, High Point's another one. We're going to get into them and to see if they could possibly spring the upset. I'm not sure. McNeese State was another one that people asked me about, but UNI is another one of those really slow defensive teams. I think they may give St. John's some fits. St. John's, good win over their arch rival UConn there in the Big East tournament, but tired legs might be catching up with that team.
I look at the bracket, and Duke was the number 1 overall seed. So you would just think, oh, Duke, out of all the number 1 seeds, would have the easiest road. I know Arizona's got issues with Tommy Lloyd in March Madness. Their road's easier. Michigan's road is easier. Florida's road is easier. The committee, and no one's going to have any sympathy for Duke, right? Duke has won enough. But the committee absolutely screwed Duke with this murderer's row that they put in front of them.
They do have a tough road ahead. And the other thing is I just don't really think Duke and the ACC were that strong this year, right? If you look at it, and the most quad 1 wins, most quad 1 teams played was the Big 12. Then, of course, it was the Big 10. Then it was the SEC, then the ACC. I just haven't been impressed with the ACC at all. Another reason why I was looking to fade North Carolina there right out of the gate. We'll see if that comes to fruition. But yeah, listen, you're not going to get any sympathy from me for the Duke Blue Devils fans out there. I want to see a team that's number 1 overall seed have to prove it to me.
All right, I see the Kansas State logo in the background. I know you're a huge Kansas State fan. Your university trying to get the money back from Jerome Tang is just an absolute joke. I haven't followed it since then. You're going to have to pay him the money. It just ended up not working. How about Casey Alexander getting hired there, coming over Belmont?
You know, I watched the presser yesterday. I'm going to say this. I think he said all the right things, right? Manhattan, Kansas is a small community, and it's always been Bill Snyder's mantra to call it a family. And I think a lot of people don't realize that that's what he did, is he built a community around Kansas State athletics, not just our football program. And I want to say this. I was a big Jerome Tang fan, and I was happy with his hire. I was obviously happy with his first year, but it didn't work out. And I think our athletics director, as well as our athletics program, learned that. And so when Alexander took the podium yesterday, he didn't make any outrageous claims or any promises of championships or anything like that. He said, hey, I'm here with my family to be a part of yours. And I think he's going to fit in really well. The problem is I still rely on those old Bill Snyder adages, number 1 through 16, and number 13 is expect to win. So he can come in, he can try to fit in really well and say all the right things, but if he doesn't win, he's going to find himself in the exact same position. There's a lot more money that people realize within Kansas State athletics. And when you're paying $12 million for a roster and you don't make the big dance, problems are going to occur, especially when it's the third straight season.
It seems like you don't want to get hurt again. Like you fell in love with Jerome Tang, then the breakup happened. And it's like, all right, you go on a nice first date. Casey Alexander saying all the right things, but it's like, I'm not going to fall in love with the guy yet.
I mean, listen, admittedly, I'm a sore fan, like, of a lot of things. K-State athletics has broken my heart more times than any man ever will, Zach. That's the joke. And I think the real reality is that I would take a football national championship 5,000 times over probably a basketball one. And so my initial gut reaction was fine. Pay Tang, get him out of town, hire somebody that used to be an assistant head coach for cheap, and put all of the resources towards basketball. Now that my emotions have subsided and I've realized the reality is yes, I would love a national championship in either sport. I think that Casey did a really great job at Lipscomb, at Belmont, but you're right. I'm not all in yet. I'm not ready to book that trip for my birthday to the Bahamas. I'm not ready to fly back home for several basketball games and such just yet. We'll see. I do think that there's going to be some interesting movers and shakers in the transfer portal, especially coming out of some of those smaller schools. We'll see if he can land some recruits.
Well, I have to apologize to you because I mushed your football team this year.
Oh.
I just threw a dart on the board in the Big 12 because there were so many teams that I liked. And I was like, oh, Avery Johnson and I like Kleiman, and they absolutely stunk. I never knew I knew I was screwed on that team very early in the season. How about the direction of the program now with the changes that they made in the offseason?
You know, it's interesting to say that. I was a big proponent of fire everyone. And I have several friends that work in the athletic department like, hey, thanks, Cal. And I'm like, you know what? Sometimes you just got to burn it all down. And that's what Colin Klein did. I had heard rumblings early on that Colin was going to be the new head coach. And then it kept being told by several donors that I know, nope, he has no interest. He's doing great in College Station. And then here he comes. And listen, I'm going to keep that same energy regardless. K-State better win 9 games this year. I'm going to leave it at that. They have a stacked roster. They have a badass coaching staff full of really talented guys who should be able to whip this team into shape. I know some guys are going to be transferring and so forth, but I expect a big year out of Avery Johnson for his senior year. 10 games, in my opinion, is the floor.
And right now we're a prisoner of the moment, and no disrespect to Indiana. What they've done the last 2 years was incredible, but they're the most losingest program in the history of the sport. I love Cignetti, but if Indiana could do it, there's probably a lot of institutions that say, why not effing us?
Well, you have to remember, everybody wants to give Cignetti his flowers, and albeit he deserves it. But you didn't do what Bill Snyder did. I mean, Bill Snyder literally took a program from the depths of college football hell and resurrected it without NIL, without the transfer portal. So, like, let's give some people what they deserve, but pay some homage to those who did it before. Yeah, you're absolutely right. If the money's there, you can buy any roster in the world, right? We've seen it at Michigan. We've seen it at Miami. We've seen it at Georgia, Alabama. All of these schools be able to literally buy national championships. Cignetti gave everybody the blueprint last year. And I think coaches have to step up. And I think that's why it was so nice that Chris Kleiman elected to step down, because he knew that maybe either the game had passed him by or that he couldn't compete in this new era of college football. I mean, it is truly the wild, wild west.
Duke, Arizona, Florida, Michigan are your 4-1 seeds. Who's the first one to fall in the NCAA tournament?
Ooh. Gosh, I'd love to sit here and think that as I champion for the Big 12 being the best conference top to bottom, that Arizona is not going to fall flat on their face once again. But Tommy Lloyd's been one of the worst NCAA coaches against the spread. Florida, 2 weeks ago, you asked me, I had said, hey, Florida looks like they're going to run it back. And then boom, gets smacked in the face by Vanderbilt. As I mentioned, the ACC, not so good. I will say this. I said this is an interesting spot for Michigan. Start the season, they were one of the most red hot ATS against the spread teams. And then since then, just absolutely paying a massive premium. Maybe now is the spot that you want to get in on Michigan. But who's going to fall first? It's got to be Duke. That's the problem. You mentioned it's a murderer's row. They have the toughest side of the bracket. I think Duke is going to go down early.
Do you think Houston is going to be able to get back to the Final Four and try to right that wrong from a year ago and win the national championship?
Here's kind of the thing with Houston, right? When Kelvin Sampson started making excuses in, what was that, January, February, I was like, Kelvin, that's not a good look. This is not what you're supposed to be doing. You're Houston. You guys are expected to win. Find out what your problem is internally, deal with it, and move on. I can tell you this. I took Idaho plus 24 earlier today. Does that mean Idaho's going to win? No, but I am just not.
It's a savage
impressed.
bet, by the way.
Yeah,
I would never even contemplate even looking at the spread in that game.
It's a lot of points. Listen, this is a Houston team that has showed some vulnerability this season, and that's particularly on the road. Again, when you have internal things go on and then the coach makes it public, look at Bill Self and the Kansas Jayhawks. I'm betting against them too. They've been having problems in that locker room all season long. I took the 14.5 with Cal Baptist. I think sometimes these narratives do come to fruition, but of course, again, you're still paying a premium for teams with the name Kansas on the jersey.
There's a lot of times where, especially in this sport, where people just start watching last week in conference tournament play and teams go on runs. And then the next thing you know, everyone is overrating a team. But then there's teams like UConn with Kemba Walker and Shabazz Napier years ago that both of them ended up winning a national championship. Are people overrating Purdue and Arkansas? Just wondering going into the tournament.
Arkansas, yes. Here's the real reality. I did like this Hogs team. I did bet them against Vanderbilt. I just think right now they're getting a lot of love. Again, an SEC team, Coach Calipari, of course, but I do think that was a statement for him. He wanted to win the SEC. Remember, he kind of got a little snubbed by Kentucky. We'll see. I know a couple of sharp guys that I respect that think Arkansas can go deep. I'm just not sure the Hogs are built for longevity here. They can go out and win some one-off games against teams they're not supposed to beat, but I would not be surprised to see them not make the Sweet 16.
And Purdue's interesting to me because they're so good, and it's so rare in this sport where you talk about all these freshmen. They got 3 outstanding seniors in Trey Kaufman-Wren. You also have Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer. And I did like 3 of their games for Compass Media Networks, and I saw 3 different versions of their team, and I didn't know what to think about them. But for them to beat Michigan, now it's like, maybe they do surprise some people in March.
Yeah, Matt Painter, I was just trying to look up. I had seen it earlier on X, and of course now I can't find it, about how atrocious Matt Painter is against the spread, and it is bad. I made fun of Lloyd. Matt Painter is one of the worst coaches against the spread in the college basketball tournament. Every single March, they fall flat on their face. So I'm not looking to lay it with Purdue, especially early on. There might be a spot or two where Purdue can get the win, not get the cover, maybe end up as an underdog, and I may look in their way. But I just think history does come into play here. I mean, if you look at teams like Nebraska that have never won a tournament game, that's a big deal. And it's getting talked about all week long. And to get that monkey off your back is huge. Does that mean that they're going to win the game? No, I actually like Troy in that spot. So we'll see kind of how the Big Ten ends up folding out. But I don't know. I'm kind of thinking Illinois is a little fraudulent too. Now that we're bagging on Big Ten teams.
What's your favorite? Like, give me like 2 picks. Your favorite picks right now for Thursday or Friday, whichever one you want.
So I already gave you guys Cal Baptist, and I already gave you guys VCU plus 2.5. I also like High Point. This game's gotten bet down just a little bit to almost 2.5 points. And then I laid it with a Mountain West team, the worst conference in NCAA history, pretty much, against the spread. I think Vegas is telling us all we need to know here about the Aggies being favored.
Are you interested in the first 4 games today and tomorrow?
You know, I will say this. Howard, one of the best ATS teams in the country. Now, of course, I know this now. I haven't been following them all season. You mentioned how all of a sudden everybody watches these conference tournaments and is, a mid-major expert. I'm not going to claim to be that, but I thought the Howard play was really interesting here. They're a very short favorite. I may be looking to fade them this afternoon. And then I know some sharp people that played NC State, but again, I'm not high on this ACC team, so I'm going to sit that one out and just hope they can beat Texas.
You hate the ACC. Jeez.
No,
you hate them.
I'm an SEC hater through and through. That is the only conference you're allowed to tell me that I hate.
All righty. Who's your pick to win it all? What's your national championship game?
I have Iowa State 30-1 in pocket, and I was really shocked on Sunday to see that they didn't get a lot of movement, and that's not good. I would like them to be a little bit better offensively from the metric standpoint this late in March, but I do think that they have a favorable path and would not be surprised to see them in the Final Four. So I'm sticking with the Cyclones to win it all.
Tell us the great work that you're doing once again with Splash Sports.
Yeah, I love the guys over at Splash. Been a commissioner there. This is my 3rd March Madness, so we're doing another Survivor Madness. $25 to enter, $250,000 guaranteed. Do not wait, guys. Splashsports.com/Kelly in Vegas. We've seen it double overnight. I think it's going to definitely fill by Thursday morning. You have until Thursday evening to sign up. Yep, we're just shy of 6,000, which is the a little bit over the halfway point. So $25 to enter. You can have up to 150 entries, which seems very excessive. I personally have 8 because I like to mix it up. Again, splashsports.com/Kelly in Vegas.
You do 8 brackets?
Yeah.
8?
Listen, here's
I'm
what
one
happens.
and done. I do 1. I get asked to be in 3 brackets. I put 1 in there, and that's it.
For all the same for all 3?
Yeah.
You do not differentiate?
I'm a man of integrity.
Oh, man, you got to move it. You got to differentiate. And you got to have different Final Fours in play because you don't want to run out of teams. That's what happened to me 2 years ago. I ran out of teams.
Well, hey, one of those 8 brackets better win, honestly, if you're throwing 8 in the hopper.
Listen, for $200, it's cheap entertainment. It's gonna be much cheaper than what happens Thursday in Vegas.
Yeah, I've wasted $200 on a lot worse things. She's Kelly in Vegas. Kelly, we appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Zach.
There you go. Kelly in Vegas joining us right here on the Zach Gelb Show on 365 Sports. Hey, Garrett, do you want my bracket now? Because I had to, I got asked to go on Pete Sousa's show today.
You did.
Pete, I think, is doing the NIT games for the ESPN.
Yeah.
And they had a production meeting, or he had to go to practice. So, Chris Visser and Cam Stewart, they're blowing up my phone. I wake up, I thought something horribly wrong happened. I had 45 missed emails from Chris Visser and Cam Stewart and Corey Dickman. And I'm like, what the F did I do? And it's like, hey, Pete had to do his show earlier than normal.
Right.
Which, by the way, when I want to go to Mets opening day, I'll be doing my show earlier than normal. That's what I'm just going to say. We'll coordinate that with one another since that policy just works there. And I ended up having to go on earlier. And then I did my bracket last night. I had some time, so I just sat down and I did my bracket. Then they're like, oh, we want your bracket and we want to go through your bracket on the show. So I had to bolt out of bed.
Right.
I had to look presentable, aka just put a hat on and get some pants on or whatever. And I sit down and I jump on with them and I go through my bracket, but I had to kind of proofread in the last 30 minutes. And I had some changes from what I was saying yesterday.
Yeah. So, let's do that. Do you want to break and then come back and do them?
Yeah.
You want to just jump into it?
No, you know what? Let's do this. We'll break. We'll come on back.
Okay.
I'll give you my bracket. And then if we have more time left after that, which we probably will, who knows? I'll give you my pecking order in the AFC in the aftermath of the Jaylen Waddle trade to the Denver Broncos. Look at that producing by Garrett Ross.
Thank you.
Shut your pot. 365 Sports.
Do you have a second?
Yeah, come on in.
Thanks. I'm having an issue with Ralph.
With Ralph?
He keeps stealing my lunch.
He's just researching new flavors.
That is slow smoked turkey.
Ralph steals my lunch all the time. You get used to it.
He also peed on my bag.
He is warming up to you. You know, starting a new job, it's a big change. I want you to think about how you can be more accommodating to Ralph. We're all co-owners here.
If I'm only wearing one suit this summer, it has to be Tuileries Performance Linen. It's wrinkle resistant, machine washable, and built with stretch and breathability that actually moves with you. It'll keep you cool, sharp, and stress-free at your next event.
What does being different mean to me? You know, that is an interesting question.
Because there really isn't one way. There's a bunch of different ways you could do it.
But love is passion. Something you can't live without.
What do you want? What's that really good non-alcoholic beer I keep hearing about?
Do you have that really great non-alcoholic beer that I keep seeing?
You mean athletic? You're looking at it.
It's athletic. Ask for it.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Great stuff from Kelly in Vegas, who just joined us via Splash Sports, the Zach Gelb Show right here on 365 Sports. I see Kelly in Vegas just quote tweeted our tweet promoting the show today, Garrett. And she said, not Zach Gelb getting me all fired up about K-State at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday. We should really get the promo department here to make a new promo for us. And it should sound something like this. The Zach Gelb Show, where we trigger our guests right here on 365 Sports. Because I got her annoyed.
You did.
I thought she was going to be positive about the new basketball coach, but she did this thing like right away. She's like, like she gave like a little look, and then she said some nice things. And then as the answer did go on, I'm like, it seems like you're not all in on your new head basketball coach from Belmont and Casey Alexander.
I think there's a lot of salty Kansas State fans. Like with Jerome Tang going in, the expectations were pretty high there.
And he delivered in year one?
Yeah, he did. He delivered in year one, but I also don't think it was all necessarily his fault. There was a lot of like administration beef with him and just not being able to get the right players and everything. At the end of the day, that's your job. You get paid millions to do that. But I just think there was a lot of things, other factors that went into him not being as successful as he could be. But at the same time, if you're a Kansas State fan, you had to deal with that. You had to deal with the Chris Kleiman not living up to the expectations. So there's a lot of people in Manhattan that are pissed, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot of them that feel exactly how Kelly feels.
And they won the Big 12 championship in football under Kleiman. That was the year where TCU went to the national championship where Sonny Dykes just didn't give the ball at the end of the game to Max Duggan and say, hey, go beat Tim Tebow, right?
Yeah, that's what happened. And then it was funny because I was at that game and Kansas State drove it down and did the exact opposite. And they leaned hard on Will Howard to get that touchdown, kick the field goal, and won. Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, that's got to be one of the most forgotten conference champions ever.
It was a hell of a game. Yeah, they do. They got lost in the shuffle of it, just simply because everything that happened in Georgia just obliterating TCU.
Well, I'm not saying because of the game wasn't. The game was excellent, but you win your conference championship game, but you don't advance to anything. It was a 14 college football playoff, and they get in there, and then you just see TCU finding their way. Yeah.
And then I believe that's the year. I think they ended up playing Alabama, and I think they beat Alabama in a bowl game. I have to double check on that one. But I feel like that's what happened.
But you know what? It kind of just shows you how irrelevant even those bigger bowl games were.
Yep.
Because if you're not making the college football playoff, and that's kind of why they needed to go to 12 teams, even though I'm not a big fan of it, because of the fact that all those other games that the sponsorship rights are huge bowl games. People just weren't really caring about it anymore.
No.
Like if the Rose Bowl wasn't in that 4-team rotation for the college football playoff, I get it's the Rose Bowl, but I'm like, like what does it really matter if you end up winning that? What year? That was what, 2021 or 2022?
I think that was 22, honestly.
Let's see. 2022. Oh, you know what? It took me to their basketball page. Hold on. Let me just grab up their football. I want to see how good the memory is of Garrett Ross. So 2022, you're saying? Yeah, they beat TCU. They lost to Alabama.
Okay, but I knew they played Bama. Yeah,
they lost to Alabama 45-20 in the All-State Sugar Bowl.
Okay.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like, let's see this. Was that? No, Tua wasn't there. That was Bryce Young.
Oh, to Bryce, yeah.
That was Bryce Young. And then I'm pretty sure the following year they came back, right? That was Bryce Young and no. Wasn't that the year before they lost the national championship game to Georgia?
No, it was the year. I think it was the same year that they lost. No, it was the year before. It was the year before that they lost to Georgia.
Yeah. Well, Now, you know what? Let's do this. I actually, for some reason, I don't know if that's right.
Hold on. No, that was 22.
That may have been their first. That may have been Bryce Young's first year there.
Yeah. So there was 22 was the year. It was Georgia beat them 33-18.
Yeah, in the Natty.
Yeah.
Okay. So, no, that was actually Bryce Young's final year there. At Alabama, that was Bryce Young's final year there in 2022. It was 2021 where they lost to Georgia in the Natty 33-18. Is that what you said? Or did I just hear that wrong? Whatever. It doesn't matter. Who gives a rat's ass? But because I remember when they lost it, what I was about to say, they lost the national championship to Georgia.
Yeah.
And then Nick Saban stopped Bryce Young and Will Anderson while they're walking away at the podium. And he goes, I just want to let you guys know, like having his hands on them, how much I appreciate these guys. And everyone's like, wow, how out of character that is for Nick Saban, because he knew that they had to brush it off and come back next year. And ultimately it didn't go to the distance that obviously Alabama wanted for that year in college football. All right. I didn't expect that to be a tangent or all that. Once we go down the rabbit hole, Kelly,
we get lost
about Kansas State. Yeah. We definitely get lost on that one. All righty. So let's do this. My bracket right now.
Okay.
Who do you think my Final Four is?
Ooh, okay. I know you changed it,
but I didn't tell you what I changed.
You didn't tell me, but I'm going to say you removed Arkansas. I would say your Final Four would be.
Wait, time out. Off of yesterday's commentary. Don't do what you think I changed it to. Off of yesterday's commentary, what do you think my Final Four is?
Oh, yesterday you would have had Arkansas in there. You would have had Duke. You would have had. I'm trying to remember Michigan. No, because Michigan wouldn't have. You would have had Duke, Arkansas, Houston, and I'm not sure who your other one would have been.
Okay, that's fair. I was loving Arkansas yesterday.
Oh, you were?
Loved them. Stan level. I sat there last night and I was like, I do love Calipari and I do love Darius Acuff. And I get it. Tommy Lloyd, he's basically like what Ryan Day was before he won the national championship. All these wins, but when it matters, peas down his leg. I went back and looked at those losses in March Madness to the opponents that they were playing. The one egregious one was Princeton.
Yeah.
Egregious was Princeton. Everything else, sometimes you need some tough losses in order to get a national championship. And, hey, we saw Tony Bennett lose as a 1 seed the next year, go win the national championship. It happens. We've seen UNC lose right at the buzzer to Villanova, then go on to redeem themselves and win a national championship. I look at Arizona. They've lost 2 games this year, I think by a combined 7 points. One was to Kansas and one was to Texas Tech. I look at who Arkansas beat in the SEC tournament, and even though I think Acuff is a heck of a player, we've seen them get blown out against Florida. We saw them lose to Alabama. in that high-scoring, great double overtime game. Arizona, Arkansas, I was looking at it, and I had Arkansas advance. I made a few changes. I had Arkansas advance. I swapped it. I went Arizona. So,
I think that's smart.
In the West, I have Arizona beating LIU. I have Utah State upsetting Villanova. I actually kind of like the High Point pick now that Kelly in Vegas gave.
I picked High Point.
But I went with Wisconsin. I took Arkansas to beat Hawaii, BYU to beat whoever wins Texas and NC State. I took Gonzaga over Kennesaw State, Miami over Missouri, and Purdue over Queens. So not a single upset outside of a 9 beating an 8 in the West. I then went on to have Arizona beat Utah State, Wisconsin beat Arkansas, BYU beat Gonzaga. So you do have a 6 beating a 3. Miami and Purdue winning. I then have a 1-2 eventually meeting in the Elite Eight with Arkansas losing to Arizona, BYU losing to Purdue, and I have Arizona beating Purdue. I wanted to take Purdue because I don't think a lot of people are going to take Purdue, and I like Painter. He's easy to root for. I like Trey Kaufman-Wren. I like Fletcher Laurie. I like Braden Smith, and experience can win this time of the year. But I just look at Arizona with Koa Pete and Braden Berries and only losing 2 games this season and it being by less than 10 points. Combined in their defeats, I put Arizona in my Final Four. I'm actually thoroughly embarrassed by my bracket this year.
Are you really?
Yeah, because I usually do a lot of upsets. And this year, I kind of feel chalky.
I get that, though. I think it's the field, honestly. I think there's not very many mid-majors that can make the moves. This is one of those fields where I think there's so much parity now, and a lot of it is built around these programs who have the money, and it's the bigger programs. So I think that's why you're looking at this and you're not seeing so many possible upsets out there. That's just how, when I was filling my bracket out, that was my viewpoint on it. It was like, man, the money's just spread out. Like, a lot of these guys just don't have the opportunity.
You know what I think it is, too? I had a lot of big games for Compass. I had Duke, UNC. I've had Michigan this year.
Yeah.
So I've had a lot of big games when doing the broadcast for Compass Media Networks, and I got to see those teams.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, this is a big dog tournament this year with a ton of great freshmen. I know he's not a freshman, but Yaxel Lendenborg has come on in from UAB and he's played well. That kind of did sit with me when I'm filling out my bracket. And also, if Arizona and Michigan, and I'll get to the other region in just a second, I picked Michigan into the Final Four. If Arizona and Michigan were in a different region, it could be different.
Right.
But I looked at Arizona and Michigan, and I'm just sitting there. And when I wanted to put Arkansas in there, when I wanted to put Purdue in there, I just couldn't get there because of how good Arizona is. And I said this yesterday about Michigan. I think they're really good. I was talking to Dusty May, exchanging a few messages with him this morning. I think they're really good. But that performance against Duke did sit with me. But they didn't play that great of a game, and it's not like they got blown out up against Duke. So I look at that region. Getting to the Midwest, the West and the Midwest, I think are the 2 easiest roads for the number 1 seeds in Arizona and Michigan. And I would say Michigan's road is even easier than Arizona's. Like, you look at Michigan, I've had Michigan advancing, Georgia, St. Louis. I felt like everyone was going to pick Josh Schertz, and I didn't love the way that they looked at the end of the season, so I did pick Georgia. Texas Tech, Akron. That Texas Tech team, ever since the Toppin injury, they've showed toughness.
Yep.
At one point, they were like 3-0 after losing him. So I will pick them to win that opening round game up against Akron. Alabama Hofstra, I know the Aiden Holloway arrest. Now he's off the team.
Yeah.
So we'll play the video from Nate Oates in just a bit on his coach's show in just a second. So that does concern me a little bit, and I like Speedy Claxton a lot. And he played for Hofstra, was an assistant there, and now has been their head coach the last few seasons. Alabama has so many ways to score the basketball. I think Alabama will beat Hofstra. I'm taking Tennessee over the winner of Miami, Ohio, and SMU. Virginia and Wright State, I did take Virginia. Upset alert in a 10-7. I did take Santa Clara over Kentucky. I did a Kentucky game this year, and it was with Buckyball, A&M. And Kentucky, first 10 minutes were awesome. And then they got wiped off the court.
Right.
I like Mark Pope a lot. He's come on my show a bunch. It just has not clicked yet for him at his alma mater. in Kentucky. And Iowa State, Tennessee State, obviously I'm going to take Iowa State. I took Iowa State to then beat Santa Clara, Virginia to beat Tennessee, Alabama to beat Texas Tech. So I still have the Crimson Tide going to the Sweet 16. Michigan to beat Georgia. I then took Michigan over Alabama, Iowa State over Virginia, and I went Michigan, Iowa State. I thought Virginia maybe beating Iowa State. And I remember watching Virginia earlier in the year, and I just wasn't impressed with them. But they did play a good game up against Duke, who I think is the best team in the country in that ACC championship game. So I wanted to put Virginia through, but I didn't want to overreact to what I saw in the ACC championship game, especially when they were going up against a Duke team that wasn't at a full percentage of health. So I have Arizona and Michigan, a battle of 2-1 seeds on the right side of the bracket, meeting up in Indy for the Final Four. Now, let's do this. I'll give you my East and my South full rundown. But let's play Nate Oates on his coach's show talking about the arrest of Aiden Holloway.
Do that. I mean, look, we've got standards in our program, and we've got ways we've held our guys accountable, and we try to keep everything in-house. Obviously, some of the situations you can't, and this is one of those, and, situation's a little different. When we found out about what was going on this morning, I found out this morning, I guess it all went down this morning. So we had to suspend him pending the investigation by the UA, Office of Student Conduct, and we're certainly disappointed in his behavior. But that being said, we still love him. He's still our guy. We're helping him get the help that he needs, and we're gonna continue to help him whatever way we can. But as far as our team goes, I thought we had a great practice. We're preparing to play without him this weekend. We're preparing for Hofstra, who's very good. They got a good backcourt of their own. And I thought our guys, while at the same time, he's, Aiden's one of our guys, and everybody, wants to wrap their arms around love. Everybody makes some mistakes in life, but they also understand we've got to move on, and we've got a whole other group of guys, and the team's got to go play Friday. So I thought we did a good job of that this morning, kind of addressing the situation, what we currently knew at the time, and got our guys focused on practice. And I thought we had a really good practice, and I think, we've got some guys that are coming along, starting to hit their peak. And
so I do wonder this, Garrett, if this was Brandon Miller, let's say that this was the Brandon Miller situation for Aiden Holloway. Is Brandon Miller playing in this NCAA tournament?
I mean, the way things unfolded last time, yeah, I would have to say he is playing.
Now, Brandon Miller wasn't arrested, though, ever, right?
He wasn't arrested. No, I think that's probably the difference. That's the difference.
Even though the situation with Brandon Miller, from what we know now, was more serious than Aiden Holloway. And I said this yesterday, and I'm like, all right, he got arrested with marijuana. Like, I think it was a pound reportedly. And I go, hey, that's a lot of marijuana, obviously, hot take of the day. But I go, in the year of 2026, is getting arrested with marijuana that big of a deal? Where maybe he doesn't play the first game, but he'll eventually be back. Now, from everything that I read, it appears like he's not going to be back with the team. And this is what Nick Kelly had to say. Nick Kelly is an Alabama football and basketball beat writer for AL.com, and just spoke with Jason Neff, who is representing Aiden Holloway. They're still gathering info. Neff said, quote, "What we learned so far, even though it was a large quantity of marijuana, it's personal use on his part. Sound like there's no evidence of drug distributions or sales," close quotes. Now, if you love smoking marijuana, and hold on, if you love smoking marijuana, like you love smoking some pot, and maybe he feels like he needs to smoke it to help recovery or whatever, is it crazy to say I'll get a little discount and buy a pound? I wouldn't say it's the craziest thing I've ever heard, especially when you're in college. When you're in college, right? Like, when I was in college, I saw some friends pick up some large quantities of marijuana. But I don't know, like, would it be more common to maybe buy an eighth or an ounce?
QP.
A pound?
Something. And look. There's no way that was personal use. There's no way in hell.
Now, I can't say one way or another. Right now, we innocent until proven guilty. I do not know. I don't want to tiptoe down the legal thing where I get a call from John Valade and Corey Dickman and say that you got sued. But, yeah, a pound of marijuana and you get arrested for it seems like it may be a little bit more than just personal use.
A little bit.
Here's the thing. So you can make, obviously, a lot of money. Pushing weight, as the kids would say.
Yep.
When I was in a fraternity in college, I did not partake in ever selling marijuana, but I knew friends that did.
It happens.
Am I incriminating myself? No.
I
just knew someone that was.
That's all you did. You knew.
I may have bought some occasionally here or there. But for someone that I knew, it was a way for them to make money in college.
Yep.
Not legal, of course. Not something we condone, obviously.
You got to pay off those student loan debts, brother.
But and I'm being serious. It was not me.
Serious.
But you're Aiden Holloway, and let's just say, hey, and this is just speculation. This is not me saying he did this. Let's just say he was selling it.
Correct.
Don't you get enough NIL money now?
Yes. That's
like
yes,
if you weren't getting NIL money, you don't need to be selling marijuana, right? Like you're getting that money, you don't need to be selling really marijuana, I would imagine.
Yeah, you don't. You don't. There's
you now get more money, sure.
I would say you might also be helping put people on. You could be helping out others. I don't know. There's plenty of ways you can get around it.
Like
but
you're saying him helping other family members? Like he needed more money, like the NILs for me, and I'm going to go help my family members that way?
You try to help people out. I'm saying you could that. Technically, though, at the end of the day, no, you're right. You have your NIL.
A question.
What's up?
When you're a college basketball player,
mm-hmm.
How do you have time to go all in and be the second leading scorer on the team? And right now they're saying that he was not distributing it for personal use. And how do you have time to then go sell all that pot?
Dude, 24 hours in a day.
I'm sorry. Like, you got a lot of time that you're at the facility. A lot of time when you're on the road, too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't know. I'll just leave it at
our pot expert, yes. Garrett Ross, right here on 365 Sports. Garrett defending all the potheads out there. How about that? All righty. So I have Michigan and Arizona in the Final Four. See, this is what I love, bracketology. Hey, Garrett, would you like some Doritos or would you like some Oreos? Who would be moving in the 1-2 matchup to get to the Final Four? Doritos or Oreos?
Oh, dog. I'd have to go Oreos. Is
Oreos your munch of choice?
No, but I would take Oreos over Doritos. And I'm not doing Oreos and milk. I'm doing Oreos and tea. And I know that sounds weird.
Oreos and tea?
Yes, sir.
Wait.
Yeah.
You don't take the Oreo off and dunk it. You don't like milk?
I hate milk. It's gross.
Oh my God.
Human beings are the only mammals that drink milk after a certain point of time. That makes no damn sense.
What are you talking about?
Dude, how many other mammals are out here drinking? Dude, at a certain
Have you ever seen a dog be born and then when it's in the litter, what it's doing?
Yeah, but after a certain point, that dog's not sitting there drinking milk his whole life like a baby and a human.
Yeah.
Cut the shit off and move on.
I love me some milk. I don't have milk in my fridge, but I love me. You give me Oreos and milk, delicious. So you do Oreo and hot tea?
No, well, I'd do like cold tea, like some sweet tea or something. Yeah.
Oh,
just let it dissolve in your mouth.
That is. You are fattening it up. That is for sure. Oh my God! I thought you meant like hot tea. That's why I was a little bit bizarre. So what is your munch choice? If we did a munch bracket, munch madness, what would be your food choice to munch?
Sponsor Wally Wallabies licorice. That is the number one for me.
So you're more of a candy guy.
I'm a candy guy. In mints. That's my sucker.
If you give me anything pretzels and chocolate, if I was in that state, pretzels and chocolate, I do thoroughly enjoy. I do like a Reese's peanut butter cup,
Can't
And then you know what I'm a sucker for?
What's that?
Soft serve vanilla ice cream.
Oh, that's
with
smoky
some
right there.
toppings. With some toppings. Yeah, but Smokey needs it probably because it's easy to chew. I'm just like, dude, where's my car?
Yeah.
I'm going to get a text from our bosses today. We love the show or never do anything like that again or else you're going to get fired. Oh, my God. All righty. Let's get
Who's on the other side? Who you got?
the other side. I'm taking Florida. Clemson, Iowa. I did go with Clemson. Vanderbilt, McNeese. I'm not picking against Vanderbilt in this spot. Nebraska, Troy. I did go with Nebraska in their first ever NCAA tournament game. I am rocking and rolling with Phil Martelli Jr. over North Carolina. I have Illinois beating Penn, A&M in a as a 10 seed advancing to the second round of the NCAA tournament, and I do have Houston advancing as well. Now, here's the thing: Texas A&M, Houston. If they do play one another, both being from the state of Texas, does that concern you as a potential upset special for the Cougars?
Not really. I think that's going to be a really good game. I think it'd be a lot of fun, but I'm still taking Houston in that matchup.
Okay, so did I. I took Houston. I thought about putting VCU in the Sweet 16. I ended up going with Illinois. I had Nebraska beating Vanderbilt, and then I have Florida beating Clemson. I have Florida, Nebraska, Illinois, Houston. I'm going Florida, Houston in the Elite Eight. Houston advancing to the to the Final Four. So
Okay.
Arizona, Michigan, Houston, 2 1s and a 2.
Hey, that's all right. We're the same right now.
Now I tried every way to pick against Duke. Every way.
Yep.
And the reason why I did not pick against Duke is everyone saying what I've been saying. They got the toughest draw.
Yep.
Well, usually when we all bitch complain about something and now people are expecting Duke to go down, I feel like the opposite happens. So I have Duke obviously beating Jerry McNamara and Siena. Ohio State, TCU, I'm going with Jamie Dixon, one of my favorite coaches in the country. I was a fan of his ever since he was the coach at Pitt. St. John's, Northern Iowa, I'm going with Pitino. Kansas, Cal Baptist. I would love to see Kansas lose. I would.
Oh, yeah.
Like, as much as I want to see Peterson advance,
right?
I would hope some sports karma plays out with the way that he handled it. But I'll have Pitino and Bill Self in the second round. Louisville and USF. I wanted to pick USF.
I did.
And I like their coach. And now he's going back home to Buffalo. His dad's going to go watch him, coach. And I think his dad has dementia, and he hasn't been able to see him coach. I was reading that story online, but I ended up going with Louisville. I'm just a big fan of Pat Kelsey. Michigan State against North Dakota State. I'm taking Tom Izzo. I want Johnny Dawkins to win. I do, but I went with UCLA. I know Mick was a prick a few weeks ago. But I still ended up taking him. I didn't want to do a spite pick there. And UConn over Furman, obviously. I'm taking the Huskies to beat UCLA. Michigan State over Louisville. St. John's upsetting Kansas. And then Duke, TCU, I'm taking Duke. Duke will beat St. John's. Michigan State will upset UConn. And then I will have Duke beating Michigan State. And that leads me to Duke and Houston in the Final Four. Arizona and Michigan in the Final Four. I am taking Houston to upset Duke, which probably you look back at that last year. Duke should have beat Houston last year, and Duke did blow it. I'm going to say Houston beats Duke. Arizona, Michigan. In the moment, I'd probably bet Arizona if it gets to this, because I do think Arizona is the better team. But I'm going to take Michigan, Houston, Michigan in the national championship game, and I picked Michigan to cut down the nets.
We are so close, dude. I have Houston and Arizona. We have the same Final Four. I got Houston and Arizona, and I got Houston finally beating Arizona and winning the Natty.
Because you're a homer. And then some people will say because you like Michigan too, and I ended up picking Michigan winning it all. Hey, here's my rationale. The two teams I don't want to fade are Arizona and Michigan because their roads are just so easy.
Yeah.
And if they don't both get to the Final Four, it's a bad look for Dusty May, who I like a lot, and it would be an even worse look for Tommy Lloyd with his past. At least we've seen, right, I know it was at FAU, but Dusty May get to the Final Four with FAU. And Michigan last year, they won the conference tournament. And then this year they lost in the conference tournament. So, in the championship round. So I ended up taking Michigan over Houston. All righty. Well, that will do it for the Zach Gelb Show today. I will give you my pecking order in the AFC tomorrow. Big thanks to Garrett Ross and Andrew Valade. What's Logan's last name, by the way? I have not met Logan yet.
It is Bagessi.
Bagessi. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
Bagessi. Maybe we should just call him...
call him Wolverine. That's what we call him.
You guys call him Wolverine?
His dad named him Logan after Wolverine. So we call him Wolverine.
Oh, okay. Well, the Wolverine... I always like a nickname. The Wolverine Logan. Wolverine. Big thanks to him and Kelly in Vegas and also Ian Williams. Most importantly, big thanks to each and every one of you for joining us. YouTube.com/@365SportsYT. Subscribe. YouTube.com/@365SportsYT. And you can always follow me Twitter and Instagram @ZachGelb, ZACHGLB, or on TikTok @ZachGelb Show. We will talk tomorrow, everybody, right at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central Time. The Zach Gelb Show live Mondays through Fridays from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 to 3 p.m. Central. We will talk to you tomorrow, everybody. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.